Hi everyone, my name is Olga Cardamone and I am the founder and CEO of Eagle Travel Tours to Russia. This is my third video dedicated to the show on Netflix called The Last Czars that is all about our last Russian royal family. And this video in particular is dedicated to the beginning of the second episode of the show. You might remember that in the beginning of the second episode, uh, our Tsar, Nicholas, and his wife, Alexandra, bathe in some sort of body of water and pray, hoping to give birth to a son. And the story of that is actually quite interesting. So we have to know that according to the law of that time, only a male could inherit the throne. That whole started with the law that was introduced in Russia by the Emperor Paul, which was approximately 100 years before Nicholas II. You might know that Emperor Paul was the son of Catherine the Great, who overthrew and allegedly killed his father. And he wanted to put a stop to these kind of palace coups. That's why he introduced such a law. But it didn't work well for Nicholas and Alexandra because they had 4 daughters and they were hoping, really hoping to have a son, but it wasn't working. And Alexandra was a really religious person and she kept praying to have a male heir. And in this picture, for example, you can see Nicholas's and Alexandra's bedroom, and behind the bed there you can see a really beautiful screen which is covered entirely in icons. So the friends of the royal family, they knew that Alexandra was really religious. They knew that they were praying to have a male heir, so they were giving them these icons as gifts. And so it was Alexandra's religious nature that brought Nicholas and Alexandra to the town of Sarov, which is where the beginning of episode 2 takes place. In Sarov, also approximately 100 years before Nicholas and Alexandra, there was a priest whose name was Serafim, who was believed to have special powers, and he was a really religious person. He was buried there. And Nicholas was the one who decided to have him made a saint. So the reason why Nicholas and Alexandra actually came to Sarov was for the celebrations of Saint Seraphim becoming a saint. Them arriving in Sarov was a huge deal, and big celebrations were organized. For example, the royal family was greeted by many people dressed in traditional costumes, or beautiful triumphal arches were built all through the way that the royal family was proceeding. And during their trip, they were also received by a woman, a nun, who lived in Sarov. She treated them to some tea and fried potatoes, and it's believed that Nicholas said to her, "Wow, everywhere we go here, we are treated like royals, but only you treat us as people." It's also believed that it was her who predicted to Nicholas and Alexandra that after that trip, they would have a son. And also, she predicted the disease that their son would have, as well as the end of the royal family. And what do you know? After the trip, approximately a year after, Alexandra did give birth to a son. Well, what about this whole bathing in some body of water in order to have a child? Well, there's no official information about that in any official sources. However, Nicholas himself wrote about it in his diary. Turns out that the night before they were about to leave Sarov, Alexandra and Nicholas, together with their friends, went to a hidden creek that was located there and bathed there. It was so dark that nobody saw them. Anyway, as they say in the show, producing a male heir is one thing that a good emperor had to do, and another one was extending the country's borders. And Nicholas had to look up to some great people in the Romanov history. For example, Peter the Great, who founded St. Petersburg and made Russia a European country, or Catherine the Great, who gained us access to the Black Sea. And of course, just like them, he wanted to extend the country's borders. So he started looking east, um, especially because there was already a railroad being constructed that would go from Russia to the east, which is now known as the Trans-Siberian Railroad. And so in the show, we see Nicholas II declaring a war with Japan, as well as we see two of his advisors giving him two different points of view on the situation. Truly, on one hand, Japan was a really powerful country, and it wouldn't be easy to win a war with them. One of the reasons was that Japan actually had an alliance with Britain that would help them if they needed help during the war. At that point, Japan was also a powerful country in terms of the army and the navy. And then the third advantage that they had is that they would be really close to the front lines of the war. So it would be really easy for them to move their troops there. They could do it much faster than Russia would be able to do that. However, on the other hand, again, Nicholas was looking up to his really powerful ancestors, and he wanted to keep extending the country's borders, especially counting that our army and navy were pretty powerful too. And Russia had control of a fortress there called Port Arthur. However, the Japanese managed to besiege and capture that fortress, as well as destroy our navy. Towards the end of the war, we kept sending troops to the front lines, but unfortunately, by that point, our Tsar was already distracted by the problems that were happening in Russia. As for what those problems were, I'm going to tell you about it in my next video. I hope you enjoyed this one. Please feel free to leave your comments in the comments section. If you have any questions, I would love to answer them, and I hope you subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Bye.